Hello everyone, Brian here from Touring Plans, and welcome to my live news. I've been trying to do this a little bit more, although I think this is only time number 2. So in the future, I guess I will try to do these a little more often. When there is not so much news, it's a good opportunity to have you guys kind of join me, and we could either talk about the news together, or you can just ask any theme park or touring plans related questions that you have. While I am waiting for people to join me here live, let's go through what news there is. The biggest news this week probably was a new restaurant that is being added to Toy Story Land in Disney's Hollywood Studios. This is Roundup Rodeo Barbecue, which is the restaurant. Now, in the initial concept art for Toy Story Land that came out back in, I think, 2014, 2015, something like that, they showed a few buildings just to the right after you walk into the land. And that seems to be kind of where this is going. It will be, as you see, actually, I'm going to put that back up for a second. Um, I agree, Rick. Go Liverpool. Very important Champions League game today. That's why I'm wearing my Anfield shirt, even though they're not at Anfield. Um, and AJW there points out it today is Hollywood Studios' 30th anniversary. I did not realize that 10 a.m. Eastern is also the time of the cavalcade in Hollywood Studios. That is also going on right now, or it doesn't seem to have started yet, but soon it will be. I'm sure we will talk much about where Hollywood Studios is going, which includes what you're looking at here. This is the Roundup Rodeo Barbecue again. It is kind of made by Andy, like all of Toy Story Land is, using, cardboard boxes and, other toys. And you can see all sorts of manners of different, Toy Story characters. No real details yet when it will open, what kind of food it will serve other than the barbecue is in the name. So, I kind of assume that it's going to be that. For opening dates, right now we're kind of guessing maybe like about a year from now, give or take. But they haven't even said a year yet. So I think they're waiting till after Star Wars Land opens at the end of August in Hollywood Studios to even guess at what might be coming next. We do kind of know where this is going to be, though. So right now, when you walk into Toy Story Land, for those of you who have been there, and I should have pulled pictures of this. Sorry, I didn't. And every time I try to pull pictures while I'm talking, it doesn't go great. So they right now is the way you walk in. The only way you can walk in currently is from, going by like the Walt Disney Presents there from Animation Courtyard. You go in, you pass by the big Woody that says Toy Story Land. Right behind him, there's just kind of trees right there until you get to Slinky Dog Dash. That is where the restaurant is going right there. We were actually just looking at a map recently saying, they could actually expand and add another ride in that area. And they probably still could, depending on how they set it up. But for now, they're at least adding a table service restaurant to Toy Story Land, which I think will come in very handy after Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opens, because they're just going to need as many places to put people as possible. And I will we have heard some interesting things about Galaxy's Edge, but I will get to those in a little bit because I'm sure there are questions about Galaxy's Edge coming. So let me back up here. I've been hearing my comment ding go off every so often here. So let's back up and get some of these. Sarah says she's struggling with the idea of getting Express Pass for one day park to park day at Universal Studios Orlando. It is almost double the ticket price at the end of July. Yeah, that's kind of the big problem with buying the Express Pass. It's really, really expensive. It will. I think I looked. My family and I were going in June, right around when the new Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure coaster opens, and we had looked at the option of, because it's much, much cheaper to stay in a hotel that doesn't have the Express Pass. So we kind of weighed the price against staying at one of the deluxe resorts versus staying at one of the value resorts or moderate resorts, I suppose. And my wife asked, oh, well, how much would it be to stay at like Cabana Bay, a hotel we really like that is much, much cheaper than the deluxes, and get the express pass. And when I looked, it was something in the like $450 to $500 a day for my family to get the express pass, which is more than we're paying for the room at the deluxe. So, it's way expensive. They're just trying to get you to stay at their deluxe hotels, which worked in our case. But anyway, as far as buying it, so end of July, we're really not expecting it to be super duper busy. Let me look at the crowd calendar here real quick and tell you. So like July 29th, oh, never mind. July 29th, we are predicting a 10 on the crowd calendar. So that is a very busy day. I was not thinking it was going to be that crowded. Earlier July is a lot more, 7s and 8s. Not exactly sure why the end of July is, other than that it must have been, that must be a kind of a hot time in previous years. The hours are certainly a little longer, open till 10 p.m. both parks in those days there. So that definitely makes this a little trickier. Being if it was a less crowded day, I would say don't even worry about using the touring plan. You'll be able to get all the major attractions done in one day. I think you still could, even at a 10-day, if you are there as early as you possibly can. I'm assuming at this point you're not staying at a Universal hotel, so you won't be able to use the early entry. But you get there as early as you can. Follow the touring plan. It'll most likely have you doing like Despicable Me, Mummy, the Diagon Alley, Escape from Gringotts, that kind of thing, and then going over to Islands of Adventure, where you would do the as much as you can there, and then going back to Hollywood Studios at the end of the day. If you're willing to spend that full day, it is 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. is the current hours for both parks. If you're willing to spend that entire 13-hour time in the parks and get there early and all that stuff, I think you can still do it without the express pass. It's going to be a little bit tricky, and it's going to be a long day. And even then, you still might only get to, the big rides. You might not be able to do something like, the Dr. Seuss High in the Sky trolley, stuff like that. If you're not interested in that, I would say, you don't need it. But if you really want to do everything, or if you're not going to be in the park all day, or especially if you don't think you can get there first thing in the morning, you're probably going to need it to see everything, or to see all the big things. You're one day in both parks. It's really hard to see everything anyway. Let's see. And I know I'm getting really behind on questions already. I love when there are lots of questions, though. It makes me speed up and not give 5-minute answers like I'm pretty sure I just did. Jamie asked, is Hollywood Studios still going to have early morning magic for Toy Story Land in September and October? We don't know yet. Apparently, we are the context that we have in Disney World, talking about anything Hollywood Studios related, the answer right now is we don't know. And we don't get the feeling it's that they don't want to tell us what's happening with Galaxy's Edge or the rest of the park after that. We kind of get the feeling they don't know. That's the real answer. They are kind of waiting to see how Disneyland responds to Galaxy's Edge opening, but also they're kind of waiting to see what the hotel occupancy is, things like that. We've been hearing that maybe there aren't as many hotel rooms booked for September and October right now as they kind of thought there might be. That they're thinking maybe people will still wait and take their Thanksgiving trips and their Christmas trips and just see Galaxy's Edge at those times. If that's the case, I think it is a given that they will start doing those events. I would not be surprised at all to start seeing paid events to get into Galaxy's Edge, either early morning magics or after hours or both. And I have a feeling the price will be quite a bit higher for an early morning magic in Galaxy's Edge. But I think for right now, they're just holding everything after August 29th until they kind of figure out what they're doing. Eventually, there is a 100% chance they will do early morning magic again. They will do after hours again. They will do events in Galaxy's Edge because that's just extra money coming in for not a lot of extra operational time. They love that kind of stuff, and I kind of like it too. I mean, if you can fit it into your budget, those events are great ways to see the park without much crowds. So it's kind of a win-win on both sides. So my guess, and this is a total guess right now, is that yes, there will be Toy Story Land Early Morning Magic at least in October, but we won't know anything about it until I was gonna say after I was gonna say a couple months, but I guess it's next month we'll know more about it because this month is when Galaxy's Edge opens in Disneyland, 30 days from today, in fact. So that is pretty exciting. Danielle asks if, and I'm assuming you're referring back to the Toy Story Land dining, the restaurant that is opening, the Roundup Rodeo. I always want to say Rodeo Roundup, but it's Roundup Rodeo Barbecue that was just announced yesterday. I'll pop that picture back up for a second for you. She asked if this was always in the plans or an afterthought. Well, actually, the original concept art did have extra buildings in Toy Story Land right where, just to the right of the current entrance, where this restaurant is supposedly going. And I remember hearing that they were talking about doing a restaurant. In fact, I think Jim Hill on one of the more recent Disney Dish podcasts with Jim Hill and Len Testa, I believe Jim mentioned that again, that there was originally supposed to be, was it that one? Actually, no. You know what? I think it was the Orlando Park Stop podcast that my friend and yours, Derek Bergen, was just on. I believe they talked about how there was supposed to be a restaurant there. And I think that's where I heard it very recently. And so I think it was kind of in the plans, and they just, probably budget reasons. Similar to Galaxy's Edge was supposed to have a sit-down restaurant as well that kind of got phased out. That could have been budget reasons there, but it could also have just been that they wanted to get as much as they could done as fast as they could and then worry about adding stuff later. But there is still a space in Galaxy's Edge for that restaurant as well. So this could be a new thing that they're doing, much like how some of the lands they're opening, like Galaxy's Edge now, where they don't open all the attractions. They did that with New Fantasyland and Magic Kingdom too, where Seven Wars Mine Train didn't open with the rest of the land. This could be another way to add extra phases and, kind of keep people's interest, is by holding back on dining and adding that later. Let's see here. And good morning, everybody. There are several of you just, saying good morning. I am seeing them. Good morning to all of you. I'm sorry, I can't. There are already quite a few comments here, so I'm trying to get through as many as I can before my voice gets super duper raspy. I've got my minty tea there to try to help, but Louise asked when we think the second ride will open in Disney World. Back to Galaxy's Edge there with Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, which all we know right now is that it will not open with the rest of the land on either coast. So we don't know if that is just a construction thing, that's taking longer. It is a kind of a new system they're using, or I guess a modification of systems that they use. So it could be that it's just behind. It could be that they realized, we could open these lands earlier if we don't have that. Who knows? Or it could be, like I just said with the restaurants, it could be a way to get people to keep coming back by staggering everything that's coming out. But we don't actually know. And that kind of fits in with what I said, where some people internally are a little concerned that guests may be waiting until like Christmas time to come and see Galaxy's Edge, creating the kind of crush they hoped to avoid. If that ends up being the case, if we get into, say, September, October, and they really think, everybody's going to come for Thanksgiving, everybody's going to come for Christmas, Um, Even if Rise of the Resistance is ready, they may not open it then. They may hold it, hoping to kind of hold people back a little bit, or they may open it before then just for the extra capacity. Um, but we don't know. Um, I've heard that it's not that far behind. I've heard that it may be months behind. Like it just the information is coming from kind of every which way. So uh, it, we just aren't going to know. It'll be a good indication when Disneyland's finally opens. If Disneyland's opens by like the end of the summer, then there's a chance that maybe Disney World's will open, before Christmas time. But yeah, they may just wait until January and kind of make people wait for it, hoping that they can get some people to delay their trips instead of all just crushing in there at Christmas week, which is going to happen anyway. But um, let's see. Ricardo asked, is it better to choose which park to go to for each day of the trip based on the crowd calendar or the fast pass availability? Well, I mean, often those are similar, but excuse me. But I think it probably depends. If you're looking at, if the Magic Kingdom is a 7 on one day and an 8 on the next day, those aren't different enough to really make the decision for you if there are other factors. If there are no other factors and you can go whichever day you want, then yeah, you might as well pick the lower of the days. But if you can get Fast Pass, especially for the hard to get attractions, for Avatar Flight of Passage, for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, for Slinky Dog Dash, attractions like that. If you can get a Flight of Passage Fast Pass on a Monday and not on a Tuesday, even if Monday is the higher crowd day at Animal Kingdom, you're probably just better off doing that, because the alternative to ride that would be, our preferred alternative is to get to the park an hour before they open and, go in with that first crowd. So then at least when you're done, you have the rest of the day to do everything else, or you just have to go and wait for it. So if you can get a fast pass to one of those really hard to get attractions, then just go with that and use a touring plan. Still get to the park early because other rides will have shorter lines at that time. Just doesn't necessarily have to be an hour early like it would for Flight of Passage. If you're just talking about like the secondary fast passes that you can kind of get any day, then yeah, you're probably better off using the crowd calendar. Excuse me. One thing I will mention, if you are staying at a Disney hotel and can use the extra magic hour, and can get up early enough to get there before the start of the extra magic hour, it can only be like 15 minutes before in that case, if you really want to. Then by all means do that. If you have a park hopper, hop to another park. If not, take a break in the middle of the day, go back to the hotel, rest a little bit, and go back in the evening when it's cooler and less crowded. If you are not staying at a Disney hotel, I would recommend avoiding the extra magic hour days, especially the morning extra magic hours, because by the time you get into the park, there will already be lines for the big attractions. You're not on even ground with everyone then, where if you go to a park that does not have an early extra magic hour, you are starting on the same level with everybody else in the park. So that can help negate that advantage for them a little bit. All right, another long answer. 20 minutes in, I think I've answered like 3 questions. That's not unusual for me. That's why Angela usually does these with me, to keep me from talking for so long. Tiffany says there will be rope dropping Tomorrowland. The touring plan puts us at Buzz Lightyear first and then Space Mountain. All right, so this is a question that we get a lot about the touring plans, and something we're working on trying to get a fix for. The way the touring plans work on rope drop is we kind of take the middle ground. So what I mean by that, if you are one of the first, say, 100, 200 people at the front of the crowd for a rope drop, that's why we recommend getting there for a regular day, 30, 45 minutes before the park opens, for an extra magic hour, like 15 to 30. so that you can get into the park. You know, you get through security, you go through the tickets, you get into the park, you get as close as you can to the attraction, and you should still have about 10 or 15 minutes. You know, actually probably a little more than that, waiting around, and then you can be one of the first ones on the ride. The advantage with that, you know, you're getting up earlier, you're getting to the park earlier, but the big advantage there is then you are done with one of the rides in minutes, and one of the, you know, bigger rides presumably. And then when everybody else is waiting in line for things like Space Mountain or Seven Doors Mine Train, that's when you can do things like Buzz Lightyear, like Tomorrowland Speedway, you know, that will still have no lines even 15 or 20 minutes after the park opens. So here's what the touring plan is doing there. It is assuming you are getting to the front of the park when the park opens. So therefore, you will be kind of behind all of the people that got there earlier than you, and therefore will not be in the first, you know, 100 or 200 people in the ride, and will therefore have a, you know, on Space Mountain, something like, you know, probably a 15 or 20 minute wait. The reason we do that is because obviously not everybody can be in the front of the pack. So we kind of pick the middle of the pack as that start point. So what the touring plan is assessing there is that if you go straight to Space Mountain under those conditions, you'll wait 15 or 20 minutes. If you go straight to Buzz Lightyear, you'll wait, you know, 2 minutes probably, and then get off. And then you can go to Space Mountain where you'll probably wait 20 or 25 minutes. So the difference in that Space Mountain wait is negligible compared to what the difference would be if you waited 15 or 20 minutes at Space Mountain, then went to Buzz Lightyear, where now maybe you're waiting at Buzz Lightyear for 10 minutes. You know, where that's an 8-minute difference, where maybe it's a 5-minute difference the other way. So that's why the plan kind of switches those around. What we are working on is a way to tell the plan, yes, I promise I will absolutely be at the park early. I will be in the front of the crowd, and I will go to this attraction first. So that way it knows that, okay, Space Mountain will have no wait, you should go there. For now, what you should do is go to Space Mountain first, and then go to Buzz Lightyear. If you want the plan to work better, what I would actually suggest is removing Space Mountain from your plan and just either adding a note to yourself or just remembering, okay, we're going to Space Mountain first, because you will be maybe a couple minutes behind for a little while, but it will catch up. In the case of something like Flight of Passage, because they actually start running that earlier than the park opens, removing Flight of Passage under those circumstances means the plan actually works perfect. But with the other attractions that don't open until official park opening, you'll end up being, 5 minutes or so behind. But you'll probably catch up on that over the course of the morning. So that's what I would do. If you could always, of course, leave it like it is, but then it's going to have that chunk. So then you'll be pretty far ahead. So it's up to you. But that's why it's doing that. And you should do Space Mountain first. You should do Seven Doors Mine Train first. Anytime the plan is telling you otherwise is just that weird thing. But if you aren't going to arrive early, if the park opens at 9 and you plan on getting there at 9, then leave the plan like it is. That's exactly how it is meant to work. Greg asks, is there any update on the tram or gondola service at Disney World? When will it be operational? The gondola system, the Skyliner that is being built and is still testing on some of the lines, we don't know exactly when it's supposed to be open. Officially, Disney is saying, I don't remember if they're saying summer or fall of 2019, but officially they're just kind of saying it will be open around the same time as Galaxy's Edge. They are testing it. They are testing it with weight. They have unwrapped some of them. We are thinking possibly to test, the temperatures in there and how the wind flows in it and that kind of thing, because obviously when it's fully wrapped, you can't open the windows. So, my guess, I know I've said this before in some of these, is that because right now the main testing is for the line that goes from Pop Century Art of Animation Station, which is right in the middle of the lake, kind of between those. It goes to Caribbean Beach, and then from Caribbean Beach, it goes to Hollywood Studios. Those two segments of the line that kind of form a T, well, actually that way because my camera's backwards, from Pop Century and then over to Hollywood Studios. Those two sections are the ones that have been testing for a little while. So my guess, and again, this has not been confirmed by anything, is that those two lines will open sooner rather than later, and the other two that go from Caribbean Beach to Riviera, and then from Riviera to Epcot's International Gateway will open at a later date, just because those haven't been testing yet. And the Epcot station definitely looks a little further behind construction-wise than some of the others. So, I think probably by the summer, maybe in a month or 6 weeks, we might start seeing guests actually being able to ride from Art of Animation to Hollywood Studios. And then maybe closer, maybe August-ish or so, they might start running the others. I am sure they want to get that Pop Century to Caribbean Beach to Hollywood Studios line open before Galaxy's Edge. That will help presumably quite a bit. The Riviera Hotel won't be open until December anyway, so there's no real need to open that station before then. So that might open, later, but before the hotel even. He also asked, will it save time getting to some parks? It depends. It could be up to, I think they've said it could be, 20 to 25 minutes or so to go from Pop Century all the way to Epcot. Which, the bus is probably a little quicker than that. The bus ride is maybe, 15 to 20 minutes, but that's not including the wait for the bus. With everything working correctly, the Skyliner system will be a continuously moving thing. Think of it like getting on the Wedway People Mover, the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover, it's called now, but where the gondolas will slow down, but will never stop, so you can get on easier, and then they zoom off at 11 miles an hour. So therefore, the line should also be continuously moving. So while it may end up taking the same amount of time as a bus in some circumstances, there are also times where the bus may not come for 20 minutes. Where the gondola, presumably, the line will be continuously moving, and maybe, hopefully, you'll only have to wait 5, minutes or less in line at each of the stations. So, on average, it'll probably be similar, but I think, in most cases, it will be faster. And to me, I find it much less annoying when I am continuously moving rather than sitting and watching 4 Animal Kingdom buses go by before my Epcot bus shows up, which I know we have all been in that situation. Let's see here. Let's see. Celine asks if we have a strategy for Hollywood Horror Nights or Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. Yes and no. I think, with both of those events, Mickey's Not So Scary especially, I'll say, it kind of depends what your focus is. I would suggest you pick like 1 or 2 things that are your main goals for the party. So be it, I want to ride rides when the lines are shorter. I want to get candy. I don't recommend that being a goal because it's the candy is unsatisfying for the most part. I want to meet characters is a big one. I want to see the parade, see the show, see the fireworks. I want to see all the offerings. And I would then focus on those. If characters is your main focus, I would suggest going after, the couple of really popular ones. Jack Skellington is enormously popular. I have a video here on our YouTube page where I went to my first ever Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party last year, the first one last year, and I come off a little bit grumpy in that one. I'm sorry. It was very crowded and 100 degrees, and that is not a joke. It was darn near 100 degrees out, and I was not super happy to be walking around there. But there is still good information despite my angriness. But one of the things that I was shocked at when I went into the park, and it was, I forget, something like 4:30 or 5 p.m. Party starts at 7 p.m. There were already people lined up to meet Jack Skellington, so they could be, the first ones as soon as he came out, and then, move on. There's the Seven Dwarves that are out that are pretty popular. I'm trying to think of some of the others that are big ones, but a lot of the villains are out. So if that's your focus, I would definitely say, like, pick a few characters and you say, okay, these are the ones I'm meeting, and you kind of start there. If you just want to see, if you want to see the parades, the fireworks, those are easier ones to do, especially if you don't really mind where you are. I walked up to the parade pretty much as it was starting, and I mean, I had to kind of look over a couple of people, but I could see everything just fine. So what I would recommend for a Halloween party is just, pick one or two things and say, okay, I am definitely doing these things. And then if I do those, then okay, these all other things will be bonuses. Don't necessarily try to do everything in one night. It is hard to do. For Halloween Horror Nights, kind of similar. Obviously, you're going to want to do the houses. That's the big draw is the haunted houses. And actually, they've started announcing some of them, and some have leaked. One of the things they're doing is using some of the Universal monsters here, which they are starting to try to use more. They've been trying to make movies about them. That hasn't gone super well. I just saw the Tom Cruise version of The Mummy recently. That is, it could be real interesting, but it's a weird movie. But obviously, same thing there. Pick a couple of houses and say, okay, I am definitely doing these. Do them first. Last year was the Stranger Things house was the big one. I'm assuming the Stranger Things house, which is coming back, will be a big one again. That line got really, really long. Some of the others only got, to 30, 40 minutes or something like that. So they weren't too bad. I actually sprung for the express pass for the houses, which allowed me, basically to skip the lines in each house one time. I put it in quotes because I still waited. I think two of the houses, the Stranger Things one, I waited about a half an hour, which that one I kind of expected. But one of the other ones, and I don't remember which one offhand now, but I still waited for, I think, 40 minutes. The line just didn't seem to be moving. And I found out what happened was there was a cast member up front, or team member, I guess, at Universal, that just wasn't really familiar with how to split. So they were kind of putting people in at an even pace from both lines, which isn't really what you're supposed to do. And actually, I found that out because one of their superiors, I assume, somebody else, came over and was very angry at them for doing that. And then the line started moving very quickly. But of course, I was already at the merge point, so it didn't help me at all. But but I did all 10 houses last year in pretty quickly, and I didn't even stay for the whole party because I get up very early and I don't like being up late. I am turning into a very cranky old man very quickly. But I also have a video about Halloween Horror Nights. So where I kind of talk more about the actual houses. I can't show video inside the houses, but I have both of those up there. I'm not doing a good job at shortening these answers, people. Let's see. Chuck asked, what do you think about crowds in the beginning of next year for Galaxy's Edge? We think at the very least it's going to be like Pandora, which held its crowds for a very, very long time. I am sure that the two Star Wars Galaxy's Edge attractions will be the first two you want to go to, or the ones that you definitely want to try to get one of the fast passes for. I assume you won't be able to get both of them as a fast pass. For the foreseeable future, probably for years, you will want to be going to, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run or Rise of the Resistance first thing, and probably the other one second. So I still think you're going to want to go there first thing in the morning. He said you're going to be there January 2nd, so you're still going to get a little bit of hangover from New Year's crowds, but that's when it's really going to start to drop. So it probably won't be terrible, but I mean, even like if you go now on the slowest day of the year, Flight of Passage still gets, hour and a half, 2 hour, 2.5 hour lines. I think it's going to be kind of like that. So I think you're still just going to want to go. Um, I still think you're just going to want to go very early in the morning. Beth asks about strategy for Hollywood studios after hours. This is a pretty easy one to answer. You don't really need one. The after hours events. The great thing about them is that there isn't that many people in the park, so you can ride. I did the only one I've actually personally done was the Magic Kingdom one, but we've had researchers do all of them, and it's all the same. You can kind of just ride stuff, re-ride stuff. I mean, the only one like Slinky Dog may have a little bit of a wait, but I mean, we're talking it'll be 15, 20 minutes max. So you just do them in, I would still probably, if you want to do Slinky Dog more than once, I would probably do it just once towards the beginning of the event and then maybe roll back around there towards the end of the event when maybe some people are doing other things or have left already. Um, or just wait. I mean, heck, even if it takes you 20 or 40 minutes to ride it twice, it's still not that bad. You'll still have like 2 hours to ride the other 5 rides in the park. So you just kind of do them when you want to do them. It's a really good use of money if you can swing it. um, Susan asks if we know if the ECVs will fit on the Skyliner gondolas. I believe so. As far as we have heard, there is not going to be any problem with strollers or wheelchairs or ECVs uh, in the Skyliner. There are there are. See, this is what happens when I try to look stuff up while I'm talking. I just stop talking. But there are some images out there. That's what I was kind of trying to look that show the interior, and you can kind of see that there are just one bench on either side, and then kind of a pretty decent sized floor space in the middle, almost the way that the monorail is set up, only a little narrower than that. But and I believe that the benches, at least in some of them, if not all of them, can also move. But I think the space in there is the same width as the doors. So I believe you'll just be able to pull like an ECV right now. It might only be one ECV per car, but it's still, again, this is continuously moving. You're not gonna have to wait for another one or anything like that. Here I found one of the pictures. Let's see if I can pop this up there for you now. Oh yeah, there we go. Um, so that is what the inside of the Skyliner gondola looks like there. It's kind of at an angle, so you can't really see how wide it is, but it looks pretty much like the bench goes right to the edge of the door there. So I assume that is for specifically for accessibility and that kind of stuff. So. All right, let's see. John asked if touring plans will start covering SeaWorld any more than we do. Our coverage currently is kind of just the occasional blog post or something like that. We don't do a lot of SeaWorld stuff. There isn't any plans right now for expansion. We don't have a very big team right now, and we currently, Disney World obviously is our biggest one. We do Universal Orlando, we do Disney Cruise Line, we do Disneyland, and we do Washington, D.C. Oh, and Tokyo Disneyland. Actually, we do have some pages. Tokyo Disneyland and Washington, D.C. are more informational, as is Disney Cruise Line. The actual plans, the touring plans are for Disney World, Disneyland, and Universal Orlando. We don't have any expansion plans at the moment. If for some reason SeaWorld really starts kicking into gear and becoming a very popular destination again, then obviously we will consider it. But I imagine it won't be for at least a few years. Kayline here asks, how does Extra Magic Hour work with the Disney Springs hotels? So this is a new feature that was given to the Disney Springs hotels, I think for 2018, where they can make fast passes now, 60 days in advance, or at least most of them can, and they can use extra magic hours, basically treating them like Disney resorts. Um, which is nice, especially because some of those are like the chain hotels. So if you can use, say, like Marriott points or something, or Hilton. I think one of them is a Hilton. I think there's some Holiday Inns. Sometimes you can get pretty good deals on those. They don't have the transportation to the parks like the Disney hotels do. I mean, they do have transportation, but it's not handled by Disney. So sometimes it will only be once an hour, stuff like that. But if you are willing to take, say, a ride share or drive yourself, there can be ways. I will caution you, watch out for resort fees. Some of those do have some pretty sizable resort fees that may make the price a little closer to the Disney hotels than you think they are. But anyway, that wasn't the question. Question is how this extra magic hour works. As far as I know, it works just the same way that it does with the Disney hotels. I don't believe you get the magic bands, but the key cards, I believe, are still RFID enabled, and you can just scan those like you would a Disney hotel room key, or your ticket media, that kind of thing. So I don't know if you use the hotel room key or if you have to use your park ticket for it. But either way, it's just coded in and they scan it and it says you're allowed in. So it is no more difficult than getting in. And I haven't done it myself, which is why I don't know the details. But I know we've had people do it and they said it was just as easy. So I should have asked for more details on that. So here's an interesting question from Scott. What do we think the crowds will be like in Pandora in October, in like September, October, once Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is open, and then and once Food and Wine is going on at Epcot? So Food and Wine starts August 29th, which you will recognize that date as the date that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opens, which is also Labor Day weekend here in the States. Labor Day is a federal holiday, a day off, first Monday in September. So it's a 3-day weekend for us. It is Food and Wine. It is Galaxy's Edge. It sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a disaster, except that it will help spread people out a little bit, hopefully. I think that's their hope. Anyway, so some people, maybe a lot of the locals will go to Epcot for Food and Wine. All the people coming for Galaxy's Edge, of course, will be at Hollywood Studios. So in September, in October, in early November, times that are not generally particularly crowded. The only crowded section in there is another federal holiday. It is Columbus Day, which is not sure exactly what day this year. Let's look that up. Columbus Day is October 14th, Monday, October 14th this year. So that week tends to get a little more crowded. Because a lot of people have that day off, and take that, and in schools are closed, things like that. So, but other than that week, September, October, early November are not very busy times of year. This year, of course, we have the big opening in Star Wars. We have Food and Wine. So, the real answer is we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with Pandora. The reason it's such a good question is because it is fascinating. How many people will it actually pull away? It might not be very many, because there might be people that have been waiting on their Disney World trip until Galaxy's Edge opens that maybe have decided, you know what, fine, we'll just go in September, even though the new rides aren't both open. We'll just go, we'll see Galaxy's Edge, and maybe they either haven't seen Pandora, or have seen it, once, and are going to head over there too, and it kind of will be the same. I think in time we will see Pandora and Flight of Passage fall back to where something like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is now, where it will still get, pretty sizable weights. You'll still want to do it first, but it won't be the crazy weights that it can get now. Those will probably move over to Galaxy's Edge eventually. I don't know if it's going to happen already in September or October. First thing in the morning maybe will be a little bit better, because again, a lot of people will be focused on Hollywood Studios, but it's still going to be the thing you go to first at Animal Kingdom. It's going to have to be. So it might not, we just don't know. And yeah, we will definitely be watching that. We are going to have a few people in town for the opening of Galaxy's Edge, and then kind of staggered over the next, couple of months. So I personally am waiting to go to Disney World until after Rise of the Resistance opens. So I hope it's, this year, but I'm going to be in Disneyland at the end of this month to see Galaxy's Edge out there. If anybody watching this or watching this later is also going to be there at around that time, look, I won't be wearing a Liverpool shirt unless they win the title, and then I may just sleep in my Liverpool jerseys for a while. I will be wearing my maroon Touring Plans shirt. I will be with a lot of the times I'll be with Guy Selga and Len Testa. So make sure you come up and say hi to us. Now this one, Jonathan here asks about how easy Toy Story Land will be to rope drop when Star Wars opens. That one I think will be considerably easier. His feeling is that you can pretty easily knock out Slinky Dog Dash, Toy Story Mania, Rock and Roller Coaster, and Tower of Terror first thing in the morning pretty easily, and I think that's going to be true. Toy Story Land will be a little weird because we've been kind of working under the impression that Galaxy's Edge will be a one-way traffic for at least a while, meaning that guests will enter in Grand Avenue over by Muppets 3D there, and we'll have to exit through Toy Story Land. If that is the case, and you have everybody coming out of Galaxy's Edge going straight into Toy Story Land, those rides during the late morning onward may end up not being less busy than they are now. But first thing in the morning, I mean, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be like Animal Kingdom is now. Sorry, I quantum leap there for a minute. But where now you go to Animal Kingdom and 95% of the people go straight to Pandora, and you could do every other ride in that park in probably 45 minutes if you don't go to Pandora. Even Hollywood Studios is like that, where if you, in fact, I think if you really want to see evidence of what Hollywood Studios is like now, I did a video with Steve Bloom, our statistician, where he went directly to Slinky Dog Dash at Rope Drop, and I kind of milled around for about 10 or 15 minutes and then went and got in after that and ended up waiting like, I don't know, an hour and a half or something crazy in the sun. But in the start of that video, I went over and checked on Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror, and there was like nobody going there. So I think that's going to be the same case, except now that 90% of the crowd is going to flow over to Galaxy's Edge. And yeah, I think I would do in that order, do Slinky Dog Dash, Toy Story Mania, Alien Swirling Saucers if you want to do that before you leave Toy Story Land, I mean. Then go down, do Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror. I bet you could do all 5 of those attractions in hour to hour and a half, probably, depending on how crowded the day is and how they end up doing Galaxy's Edge. Because if they end up doing a reservation system or a return time system, like almost like a fast pass return to get into the Galaxy's Edge, the land, there will be a lot of people just kind of milling around Hollywood Studios doing other stuff, waiting for their times. If it is a come in, line up, which that's kind of how they're indicating right now they're going to do it. That sounds like a terrible idea to me, just having people line up and wait for it, but they have a long time to change their minds, so hopefully if it ends up being like that, there will be so many people lined up over there that you'll be able to do everything else. So yeah, I think that will actually be a very good plan if you are either not interested in Galaxy's Edge or are doing Hollywood Studios over like 2 days. And if they are making people line up for Galaxy's Edge, you're gonna probably end up taking a whole day just to see that, which, God, I really hope they don't do that. All right, switching to Disneyland here with Laura's question, and I only have time for a couple of more questions here. I think I'll try to do lightning rounds here as much as I can. I'm not good at this, at this short answer stuff though. Oh, look, you can see my little otter on my cup. So Laura asked, what is more likely to happen in Disneyland after June 23rd? If they will continue with the reservation systems they are doing now, or open it to everyone and have fast passes available. Um, so the way it is right now, you need a reservation between May 31st and June 23rd. You need a reservation in advance to get into Galaxy's Edge. If you are staying at one of the Disneyland hotels, they have assigned reservations, which you can get now if it hasn't been sent to you. And then May 2nd, which is, tomorrow, um, you and everyone else can try to get reservations online. So, um, and then starting June 24th, you don't need the reservations anymore. I've been kind of under the impression, and I've heard whispers that they might do it like almost like they do with the Max Pass, where once you get into the park, then you will be able to reserve a time to get into Galaxy's Edge. This is June 24th or after. So you will still want to get into the park pretty darn early to get the earliest possible time, or get them before they disappear. Um, but they haven't said anything about that. I think it's going. My guess is it's going to be something like that. That you will either have to physically walk to the land and get a return time, or you can do it via the app, or both. They might do it like you can do Max Pass, where you can still get the paper Fast Pass, or you can do it on your phone. Um, Disneyland, people just love to line up there. Anytime there's a new parade or a new anything, or the return of, Fantasmic comes back at a refurb, you'll get people waiting hours and hours just to see it. They just make a day out of it. They'll go and wait, and I'm saying they because I am not one of those types of people. I am very much the type I will walk up and just see from wherever I can 5 minutes before a show starts. I just don't like waiting in lines. That's part of why I like touring plans so much. And speaking of that, I haven't put my pitch to subscribe to Touring Plans. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, I should have said this an hour ago. Subscribe to our channel. We are trying to boost our subscribership numbers, as everyone is, and this way you'll always know when we have videos out. And our videos are awesome, and I am way biased in that because I make a lot of them. But because of that at Disneyland, I just don't think they're going to let them straight line up, because they'll end up with people lining up like a day in advance to get into the land. And I think that's just a bad look. So I think they'll end up having some sort of a reservation system. But I think it will be a day of, kind of like how Universal Studios did with Diagon Alley, where you had to go into the park and get your return time and that kind of thing. And let's see. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to start skipping over some questions now, because I'm gonna have to cut this off in a few minutes here. But let's see. Janice asks here, they have 3 days to do Islands of Adventure and Universal. 3 days is a pretty good number to do those parks, actually. That allows for, doing everything and re-riding, favorites. Harry Potter is a priority, as it should be. And she asked if they should do 1 day just doing the Wizarding World, and then, 1 day kind of for the rest of the other parks, or mix it up. Honestly, you could do it either way. If you're really excited about the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, from experience, I'm telling you, you're going to want to go see those lands probably more than once. Diagon Alley, I still, and maybe it'll change once I see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but Diagon Alley, for my money, is still the best land in any theme park. And I love going in there. I will usually go in there every day that I am in Universal Studios Florida, even if it's just to walk in and walk around. But so if you're going primarily for Harry Potter stuff, I would say maybe the first day do that. I would recommend doing Hogsmeade first, actually, because I think Diagon Alley is better, and it will make Hogsmeade look not quite as impressive, even though it is very impressive. I think it is better to see Hogsmeade first and then Diagon Alley. And you can ride the Hogwarts Express both ways then and everything. So maybe do that, and then on days 2 and 3 you can either kind of split and do do a couple rides in each park, or like you said, do all of one park and go back and do the Wizarding World again, and then the other day do the other park. It probably won't take you all of 3 days to do that. You're going to have some extra time, which you can use either for relaxation, seeing City Walk, or reriding things. So like 3 days is generally what I recommend. It's a good number for Universal Orlando, because it kind of allows you to do everything a little more relaxed. You can do it all kind of in one day. Um, let's see here. Lisa asked when we think they'll release details on how to get in Galaxy's Edge for Disney World. I mean, no earlier than June. They're gonna wait to see what happens with Disneyland, I'm sure. But like I said, we've been hearing they might just let people line up, which again just sounds like a terrible idea. Andrew asks, how many beers can you drink in club level lounges before they kick you out? I don't know. I think I only had two when I was there. I am actually we are actually staying, as much as I said we considered going with a cheaper hotel. What we ended up doing was or Universal was staying at one of the deluxe hotels on their equivalent of their club level there. So maybe it's not technically a work trip. I'm there with my family, so maybe I'll test it out. And or we'll see if I end up getting divorced or they kick me out first, I guess. um, See, Beth asks, any recommendations for a 7-year-old boy on what might be a favorite? First time with kids, and the daughter is super excited about Princess. His son is feeling kind of blah about it. Um, well, my son is 7. Now he has been going to Disney World since he was a baby. So literally, he was there when he was 8 weeks old the first time, which is I do not recommend that one necessarily, but. It kind of depends. He's starting to get more into thrill rides now. Last time we were there was the first time he did Rock and Roller Coaster, and we thought he'd never really liked roller coasters before. We just wanted him to try it, so all four of us could do it together, and we kind of thought he would hate it, and it turns out he loved it. So, now he wants to do all of the big coasters when he can. So. If your son is like that, he might love Rock and Roller Coaster. Expedition Everest is a pretty good one. It's not super intense, but it's still fun. Um, Avatar Flight of Passage is both of my kids' current favorite attraction. It might be mine too, actually. It's a really, really good, like it's a simulator, but a really, really cool one. Um, it kind of depends, on him. If he is the type that thinks it's going to be babyish and that's why he doesn't want to do it, then yeah, I would, take him on, Space Mountain and Rock and Roller Coaster and Everest and Flight of Passage is very cool. Tower of Terror, things like that are, they're not rides for little kids necessarily. Um, and I think he probably will just find favorites. My kids still love Tomorrowland Speedway. My daughter, who's 10 now, and has to, and she's tall. Her legs already don't quite go in the cars on Tomorrowland Speedway, and she still loves it. It's a terrible driver though. So I'm not particularly worried. I think he'll find favorites in there. He might be blah because he thinks it's going to be, you know, kind of for littler kids or for girls with, you hear all the hear about the princesses and who knows. My son also was a big fan of Jasmine, especially in her costume that showed off her belly a little bit when he was I think 2 or 3. We have some funny pictures of that. So you never know boys that age are tricky. You never know what they're going to end up really enjoying. Danny Boy here asks if we think Islands of Adventure will have early park access once Hagrid's coaster opens. Yeah, right now on the calendar, they are only going through the end of May, and it is only Universal Studios Florida that has the early entry. We are assuming that Islands of Adventure will have early entry, at least starting with June 13th, which is when Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure opens. I always have to think about that title. but we don't know. I'm hoping within the next like 2 weeks at least. And Universal's not great about announcing their early park admissions in advance, so hopefully it will be soon. Uh, let's see. And I'm sorry again for skipping some of these questions. I will try. Let me think. Next week, I will try to do one of these again next week. Um, so, if I don't get to your question, please come back. I maybe will try to go through and pull some of the ones I didn't answer to start with next week. But by all means, come back and answer them. 2 weeks, I will be on vacation, so I definitely will not do it then. Not a theme park related vacation. Going to the Grand Canyon. Let's see. Yeah, CH says 6'5" 285 and loves the Tomorrowland Speedway. I like it too. I'm a little bit smaller than you. I'm about 6'3", and so yeah, I don't fit particularly well either. I can only imagine what it what it must be like for you, but it is fun, and I complain about my kids banging me around on there, but that's more because if they know that I enjoyed that kind of stuff, they wouldn't want to do it anymore. So some of it is just acting. All right, and it has been right about an hour now, so I'm going to cut it off. Like I said, please, I'll try to do one of these next Wednesday, probably around the same time, and come back and see us again then. And thank you all very much for the questions. It makes it so much easier when we get such good questions. And thank you all for subscribing to the channel, and be excellent to each other.